right, happy Friday. Friday, of course, was when the exciting breakdown of the state conference was had, and I can confirm that again I still can't locate, the managing director of Birmingham City Council or John Cotton. Once again, in fairly simple terms. If it depends on the relationship between employee and the state for a start, and if you are going to sue Birmingham for denying you me medication because the people in charge of the medicine were so incompetent and corrupt, probably because of Labour's previous behaviour. So of course in the history of this kind of stuff, I don't know, we'll pick out a model for David Nutt at some point in my bag, but of course he was part of the Labour history, and of course Labour looked at the scientists and said, well, this is going to be bad for Labour, we don't actually care about the people who are being attacked by the state. Of course, Hegelian, your ideology is above people, that kind of stuff. So they get the law on this kind of stuff clearly wrong. For £5 a month, gets you what's actually a psychosis screening. So of course they don't call it a psychosis screening. It's not come here pleb, go for your psychosis screening once every 3 months, then 6 months. It's a check by a doctor to make sure that the medication is affecting your brain in the way it should do. So if you don't have a diagnosed neurological condition, what you may do is suck on this thing and go and drive into pedestrians at 200 miles an hour, because that's what it generally does to most people. Makes you very, very sort of assertive and this kind of thing. But if you have one of the neurological conditions from birth, you lack executive function, so you struggle to take the action, therefore it has a different effect on the brain. So I'm sure for everybody it'll have sort of general, relaxant effects, but as a particular population group, it does actually allow the brain to function better, because you can simply go and engage with the literature. So I won't post it again, it's over by my book stand, but if you think you may have a different neurological makeup, go and speak to a doctor. So if you can get a referral to a clinic, maybe you can get an autism diagnosis. Be, of course, honest with the clinician and tell them how you think and operate in the world. But of course, in most cases, it's pretty bloody obvious. It's just you need the clinician to confirm that's the case, and you can then if you've never done that, you can start to have an adult conversation about some other matters. But what the clinician should do is refer you straight away to psychotherapy, because you've had to go to a doctor yourself. Your family and friends have never taken you to a doctor for your entire life, so that says quite a lot, doesn't it, about the sort of people you've got around you. But if you read the literature, so Pete Walker and John Bradshaw, you've got to ask that how much of that is down to these people and their behaviour, not necessarily you, given that you're probably going to be relatively intelligent and, because of the way the brain works, generally not particularly actually aggressive, because you can't be, because you're the executive function problem. So the aggression is translated into thought action in other ways, via sort of thought and ultimately military planning. So given that, again, behind here, just as a reminder, we've got magical shrapnel that went through a guy's neck so that I can live. So the Hegelian Volk socialists shot a very large cannon at a boat one of my grandfathers was on, didn't kill him. The bit of shrapnel that went through his neck didn't kill him, so we're still alive, and we're saying, Junior was kicked in the face. So Dad said, okay, we're going to go make money. Don't bother with the money stuff. Just shut up, kid. Go and work out the problem. So we worked out the problem. So based on English mythos and folklore, and obviously you teach Christianity, so silly stories. So golden calf is, here's how cults work, and here's the more the child-friendly phimotic version of the Christian story, so you can be an adventurer yourself in a Christian sense. When you're an adult, away from the silly stories, you read actual philosophy. So you think, okay, well, Kant stopped the Enlightenment wave, but bounced it back upwards. So no dummies, God isn't dead. You can't in any way make that claim, because there's a huge gap in our knowledge, which you can't know. So you may as well, if you're just assume he is, then magically your life gets better and you somehow become a better thinker. Take that, dummies. And of course, Schopenhauer carried it on, but nobody wanted to listen to him. Nobody wanted to say, I'm actually second in history. Okay, we'll just carry on. because it's ego, isn't it? In the history of philosophy, you can only ever be second to Immanuel Kant. So if you go into philosophy at any point past the 1800s, you are second fiddle, effectively, aren't you? You can never make that inference again. Never be the guy who sets stops the French Revolution, just destroying Germany, and all of humanity owes a huge debt to him, quite clearly. So when you're following on from him, if you go into all of this kind of work, it is bouncing it back, isn't it? So you bounce the Enlightenment effectively back from Scotland by effectively heckling in St Giles. So if talk about Foucauldian power dynamics echoing through the halls, you can send them a not particularly polite professional email, but saying, please could you stop making that noise? It's really quite horrible. No, I'm sorry, we're entitled to actually have a country and not have it dissolved by this clearly power grab from hostile foreign interests. No, we don't have to apologise for our history. Christianity hit the country, it fermented, and we spread it out. And now we've got people who are fundamentally unchristian who are attacking us. So we owe these people nothing, and they can be deported. It's not unchristian to deport people who are attacking you and your citizens, idiots. And no, they're not refugees, idiots. So don't tell lies in a cathedral. But the problem, of course, is, as always, if you try to grab power by Christian ethics, then you're just a crank, aren't you? Unless you can make statements which may sound odd and may cause you to get into some trouble. But when honest men look up, they say, oh, right, okay, well, I guess you do have a point. I can't actually refute what you're saying. So I suppose whether I like you or not, it's not the case. You're clearly putting something on the line and you're honest. Therefore, unless I'm deferring to the Bishop of Rome or a cultist, I'll listen to you, not them. So as a Friday reminder, here's the seething pit of Birmingham as we left it back in November. So the managing director's got her head blown off by the sniper and my late father's ghost. The HR goblins are fleeing, trying to herd the equity squigs around, but there is no equity. The Muslim war boss from Green Lane was chasing John Cotton and taken over corporate communications in this sort of strange array he has to promote genocidally racist literature towards our children. Gassed up, of course, by the EDI moron who's gone along with the cult. And in the back behind the EDI moron is the Islamist using critical race theory to recruit in using the corporate communications of a British public body. So the police can't go in because it's just a seething mass, and you'd have to have a cop who's a political theorist and to interview these people into court and separate them out. Some of these people may have a use. You might have a sort of useful squig that is eating a goblin in somewhere because it's really angered, wants to do its job. I could have been a squig. I was for a bit. You kill HR people via the laptop as well in counter ops and just remove them. So, but I wasn't a squig because I'm too intelligent. But anyway, but this is Birmingham, so you can't sort it out. So you terrify them by saying, well, you're sending the equivalent of an FPV drone at the police and me via a laptop. So if you think this model is just a laptop server that Deborah Argentieri, whoever that is created to give a postmodernist cynical theories via legitimacy, because the organisation wants to look legitimate, but it's not. It's full of these sort of crooks and parasites. I forget this one. It's probably David Fern or something. We did a even more disgusting one for Jennifer Southall. There's Nikki Brennan, these kind of people. So we found, as the Games Workshop are quite good, but we need more models to actually demonstrate this. So the police can't go in. So you imagine artillery surrounding this generally, but one really big artillery piece, and you get the girls involved. So you create one of these and just make it pretty. So please make that sort of Christianised and pretty, beautiful angels. Just make it beautiful in a Scrutonian sense, please. I'm a big aggressive grug. I can think about this, but I've got other things to think about. I'm stuck in war mode, so please just make the damn thing pretty. And you level up this thing with more conventional artillery, and then you create a multi-generational one. So you in terms of scale, you do have something like this. So just a giant cannon that points into the sky, one single shell would take the entire place out. And in future generations, one of my descendants has a button somewhere on a certain island and can press it. And if we detect this kind of stuff coming from Birmingham again, we don't ever get into the situation where we're having to flee. My descendant just goes, oh dear, that's a problem, bang, and they all explode. But you can do this in the modern day with existing equipment. So you can go and find these people with drones. So already they're afraid because they're all crooks and Islamists and this kind of thing. And then we can terrify them even further by making it funny. So we surround it by British military assets after a peaceful transfer of power, and we funny Waco them. So tank into the council house, just blast it full of cannabis smoke because they refuse to obey the law. And David Nutt wasn't listened to. So Birmingham Labour has quite legitimately caused serious harm to an entire generation of people. I was sitting on a bench by one of the statues, and I spoke to a homeless veteran, and he said that he'd gone to prison for cannabis, which of course is now legal. So the British state has persecuted somebody who's been in the armed forces for something that is now prescribed by doctors, right? So that because Labour didn't listen to the scientists, it's not just they've damaged people in the clinical sense, they've obviously ruined people's lives. So one of the many reasons why we're not going to tolerate these disgusting people anymore. They're ignorant and corrupt gangsters who try and control people when they get into power. Just that John Cotton was effectively, his career will end up being the sort of a vortex. So a shot that goes to the managing director's head, bounces off a bulkhead, takes him out, and that just destroys English socialism forever. Once this is taken apart, but it's taking it apart as peacefully as possible. So thankfully these are our models at the moment. In the background then, so we've got the information warfare team. So in counter-revolutions and guerrilla warfare, this is effectively Restore Britain at this point. So if you paid £2,500 to join the Cromwell Club, you're pretty committed. So it's now down to competence hierarchy. Can these people investigate what's happening in organisations and form a counter elite to run them properly? So when in 2020 I'm saying to a director, this is a Maoist revolution effectively, and they're hiding, then these people can be removed from public bodies. You can't have directors who are effectively unemployable because they go along with Maoist revolutions. Birmingham can't really do that. That's a problem. So in terms of a competence hierarchy, then you've got to not go very high to be above a plastic model in terms of dealing with the Brummies. Just in my case, I've got a particularly nice, actually, if you are sort of a composting gardener type mindset generationally. This is just a load of mulch. We can blow it apart and resoil the earth and this kind of thing. So it's not actually a problem. You calm down, you just think about it generational terms, and you can slow your thinking down a bit. So you calmly roll the artillery into Birmingham. But anyway, our team is currently under siege because a tiny elite force. We can use the technology. We've got people who are encouraged to be mentally liberated because the network will back them up. Offending someone is not actually a problem as long as the general tone is, on the side of the British. So get the country back into proper control. As long as people are, there's a great vetting procedure, which is just turn up and don't attack the country, don't hate the place. You probably get on fairly well. But that gives us, in terms of intelligence gathering, quite a lot of reach. Just that with the press blackout, it's not transferring to political power at the moment. But of course, as Birmingham falls apart, because again we've been ahead of the curve in every sense since November. What I'm prophesising, quote unquote, is probably going to come to pass in Birmingham business. You can see the Tower of Babel falling apart as the Equality and Human Rights Commission tries to IP block me, and people on Twitter are saying at the Five Eyes conference or whatever that is, please can we arrest the Home Secretary, we're being invaded, that kind of stuff. So it's the fifth generation warfare environment is clearly with us at the moment, certainly is for the British. And again, I can still teleport in and out of this thing at will. The Brummies still can't deal with me, because if they had, I wouldn't be a plastic model, because I'm not. I'm still out and about in Edinburgh daily. I'm reachable generally outside Edinburgh Castle if people want to come out there, or again, if you want to come to St Giles on Sunday. If I'm in Edinburgh, I can't think of any place I'd rather be. So if you want to actually come on Sunday and actually tell the truth about what's happening in that city, please do. But the current issue is they're not going to, because it's not even, there's you can argue it's security. Mainly it's partly embarrassment. Deborah Agentieri, whoever that is, has been caught doing these sort of silly, bounce back political theory tactics that don't work with a laptop. She has no legitimate basis for doing this. She's saying, oh no, he's too scary to appear on a computer screen. What will we do? Oh no. Therefore, I can legitimately attack you on behalf of the state without any recourse or speaking to your late father's law firm, which would include physically going into Birmingham and walking into their offices. But because I've made some bullshit with the computer, I think that's totally reasonable. I'm thinking that no agent of the state will actually intervene in this, so I can get away with it. So she might get away with it, but she can be found, right? So you can find me with a drone. I'm not difficult to find. But I can find you with a drone. Yeah. But in a civilized society, this is clearly for defence, isn't it? So I wouldn't have been able to actually obtain these things legally via going to the armory, paying them, presenting my ID, confirming with police this is okay, because I would be uncivilised, wouldn't I? And if I was uncivilised, I couldn't use them. Therefore, they wouldn't exist. Yeah? But in the court service, I'm allowed to use the weapons because we attack people on behalf of the state. So we put together a case bundle which says, yes, this person has clearly, it has no interest in actually engaging properly to actually resolve matters. But what we're saying in this case is, well, the environment in Birmingham clearly cannot continue because I would just go into an office and be attacked. So you can't do that in a compliance department. The deal with the City of Birmingham was, we work in a secure unit with security. The people in there are ex-police, as the member of the powers said, and it's that kind of compliance team. So it's an adult male environment. We're thinking about security on the fly. But again, because of the 2020 collapse, we've now got organisations run by this rump of useless women who can only behave like apparatchiks in Birmingham. But you can. This is why the previous recordings yesterday were so helpful. So someone like Parvini saying, well, you can't do anything, you can do it. You use Birmingham as a test warfare lab, and you use the anti-Baudrillardian sort of antimatter stuff to tear it apart, isn't it? So the members of the organisation can't just hide, can they? It's a huge local authority with lots and lots of staff. So you can go down and ask them questions. Not only can you ask them questions, you can go to the court, which has the legitimate authority of the state, because the king says it does. So when anyone follows just the chain of inferences through any of this, it goes back to authority, doesn't it? So we've got a Labour government which is clearly just attacking the country at this point. So it's down to the sovereign, isn't it? If he's not responding to stuff like this, and at the Five Eyes conference, it's not just where's the Home Secretary, it's where's Charlie. If we're in a compliance department and I'm being locked out by Muslim gangs, then A, the state cannot function. B, I'm getting out. C, I'm getting my family out if we can. And D, after that, assets are secondary to life, aren't they? Making sure me and my family are safe from being murdered is first. Then the kulak stuff can come later, can't it? But if the British state thinks they can go along with guys like Lowell's and their theatre performances are up to the standard, find better theatre performers, love. But you can't do it because you need a creature like this to pull off your strategy. If Birmingham wasn't corrupt, then the women they would hire would not look like this, right? So in a court, you could make this inference. We don't care if it offends you, we don't care if it shocks you. But the quality of the ape running a public body is clearly going to be of interest to the people living there. And when you've got this ugly, ignorant, demonic troll that can only go into a theatre performance surrounded by effectively apparatchiks and commissars, pull off this disgusting and dishonest theatre performance, try and book it out the back in front of her own court staff, get caught, receive a letter for action that she's got a full legal team. Any lawyer with a brain would recognise that thing as a letter for action straight away and act upon it. But because they didn't, and because A, they were so arrogant, and B, so invested, this woman just had her head torn off. She can explain literally nothing. She cannot explain her behaviour, and because her behaviour is so egregious, on top of the last two senior members of Birmingham Labour, the city has to be sanitised because it's now a hazard to the British. you have unassimilated, unassimilable Muslim gangs, armed gangs, hijacking corporate communications to interfere with the running of the authority. And when I'm in a department that oversees vulnerable population groups, including seriously vulnerable children, I'm saying to someone who's been brought into the department, hello, right, your case quality is shit. You just tried to get me to attack a woman and her child illegally. We couldn't do it. If we'd gone to the court and I tried to justify this, I would have to say, no, we cannot justify it, and we cannot then rectify the problem in the department because you cannot do the job, neither can the person above you, neither can the person sideways because she's been removed for being seriously corrupt and dishonest and incompetent, and our director is hanging on like a bad smell. The department cannot now legally run. It's absolutely absurd. It needs an entirely new team in to professionalise it. You can get Duke staff in probably. Dukes with their technology will be much better than what we've got now. So training them away from just revenue collection and getting into the ethos of running that kind of housing stock, and their staff are just going to be better, I think, in many cases. But we're not even anywhere near proper departmental running, because if your court staff are at risk of being stabbed to death, it's fairly fucking obvious that you can't run the city, because there is, the city of Birmingham would not and could not give me a bunker secure enough to do the job. And when we've got a bunker secure enough to do the job, we can do it. But what we have to do is, of course, give me a member of staff to do it. So what should happen is the caseload comes through, I review it. My junior, so one of the girls who probably came in as another member of someone's family, interestingly, but we can take her into the wing and have her doing the case bundles, so she's doing actually proper work. But I can then do that in effectively sort of an instance while I go about the day. But while the court service is actually doing proper case management, sort of stuff we should have been doing, certainly well more than a decade ago, to get the department running compliantly, because it's fairly obvious to anyone with a brain that nobody else in the department can do compliance now. It is just impossible. You cannot physically do it. And you could not then follow the law because the people are not interested in it or capable of making the inferences. So there is no possible reason for the department to not take this as being a truism. And then you've got revenue protection, so people barging in saying, oh, this is ours now, this kind of stuff. We already had thefts in the department, so if you're writing to a senior manager about entryism and they're not responding, what do we say? But the commissioners have found it's just ungovernable, needs to be taken apart. Mitchell and Phillips, in my view, are both similar sort of people, frankly, trying to save their own skin based on how they've behaved. I was going after Naylor in 2020, so I regret absolutely nothing and have nothing further to say to these people. So the further proposal then, so we sent off this morning, given the current position. So if you are a Schopenhauer guy, you think, well, this might be quite disabling, I can't do much. But if you can appear and a senior reform spokesman says, yeah, you can leave the Civil War, then you can laugh at that. But for investment at this point, sort of £3,000. So if it's a joke or not, I don't care. But since we've actually got a set of proposals that, with a defence review, would actually work in a physical sense, that sort of physically affect the world in the way only the British really can, then you give people hope, don't you? So they've got something to look at, which is initially silly and crude. But you leave that kind of stuff in the databases along with the other criminal evidence. And if John Cotton Ice picks me tomorrow as the anti-Lenin, I don't care. You've got a way for the British to say, sorry, hang on, we've got a bit confused here. This is ours. Come here if you're respectful, but if you're going to behave like this, just leave. We've had enough, thanks. And have the world listen. Because if they don't listen, they'll see what's happening. But of course, as migration flows go out, some of that's going down the Channel Tunnel, isn't it? So you say to the French, well, relationships have broken down. We've tried everything we can, but we've still got small boats coming across the channel. We paid all sorts of money already. You're letting foreign NGOs break the law. So, and we're giving up trying to enforce the law across the channel, which we can't enforce it here. So you are no longer our problem. So what will happen is when you come in, we'll find out who you are. If you haven't got a satisfactory explanation, we'll cut off from any support and you'll just be herded down the Channel Tunnel. and along the way we'll mine it effectively. So we don't have to nuke it, but blow it up. So you say to the French, well, okay, you've come here, so Birmingham is now our deportation factory. We'll fly you out if we can. If you're too low grade human capital to bother with a flight, we'll stick you. Point you down the tunnel, we'll give you some rations for a few days in a tent or something, and you are France's problem. The French can then stay in the European project if you want. We've left. These people are no longer our problem. We'll withdraw from any treaties that prevent us from acting. Thank you. We're not going to be tied down any further. Certainly after the bounce back comes into power, and it would be their problem, or cooperate, right? So yes, okay, we'll do the anti-French revolution in reverse. So you're not going to disrespect your priests anymore. So you get the Islamists out via Christian ethics. So flush them out, and the Germans too, and then the three of us, and the Poles, of course, are already thankfully providing a bulwark for us while we sort ourselves out. And as a team, we can get back to being Europeans again, and trade with each other fairly and respect each other's cultures, because yet again Europe has done it and prevented the hordes from taking us over. So anyway, we'll send this off into, again, the benefit is they can try and IP block whatever they want, but these morons are so stupid, and even if they took out the technology, you just go back to thumb drives in pubs and things, haven't you? There's so much vestigial technology sort of lying around everywhere that preventing people from discussing things is impossible. The Burnham regime can't do it. So as the inferences become clear as to what's happening, the organic support is just clearly going to go in our direction. It is just down to anybody intelligent enough to see it. And your initial investment is going to, I think, pay off, not even in monetary terms. So the money in this regard can be a total sunk cost, don't care. But if at the end of the process, if at the end of my life, this place is close to what it was when I was born, beautiful, gentle, Christian place that I would have loved to have raised a family in. But at the moment, of course, we've now had to get out of because this has happened to us. So if you don't pay attention, unfortunately, we can blame ourselves for the way your society is going. Bacteria and fungus sort of grow on things like on a jar of agar, and once you notice you've got a problem, so you've got to incinerate it, somehow to get rid of it because it's too disgusting. So this is unfortunately the city of Birmingham currently. We'll have a chat with my colleagues, many of whom are in the armed forces. At some point in the near future, we'll discuss this further. But as Baroness Fox was saying over the last weekend, the time for lawfare is done because the state just doesn't care. There are too many apparatchiks and too many posts, so it is now just a case of state legitimacy. So with Mahmood in wherever she is, I think she's in Australia or using AI possibly. With Burnham in Ukraine. You can do the best amount of good you possibly can do, right? You're an aspiring elite theorist, as Parvini would have it. Just go and find, just ignore everyone else, but just British members of Birmingham Labour, and just ask them questions. So you use the Jess Phillipsisation of the entire political party and treat them as you would treat her, effectively, including Nicky Brennan. So find them, stick cameras in their faces, ask them about their court enforcement staff, the politicisation of Birmingham police, this kind of stuff. And if they're hiding, well, good. Yeah, so for the kids, the Waco, of course, was when I forget the exact details. You can look it up. But the Americans, of course, have a certain gun culture, and there's a standoff over weapons or something, and the American ATF rammed a tank into the building. I think set it on fire. So it was a particularly horrible event. Lots of people died, but given the how many people have died because of Birmingham Labour, I'm sure will because of the chaos they've done. You don't actually have humans necessarily, or you clear every human out of the building, deem it as cursed because it is, and just try John Cotton in there and just, as I say, just take all the weapons off it. So it's a Christian way to kill him. Just blast him with cannabis through the ruins of the council house. And whether he survives or not, we'll give him time to run and then just shell it. single shell, boom, that awful building goes apart. Hopefully taking out the library as well, so that awful fortress can be torn down. We'll get the books out, obviously. We're not Philistines like Birmingham Labour. But, you know, the idea that you can't do this kind of stuff, that we have to give up, is the biggest delusion of all. Once the British are allowed to get organised, right, you couldn't get anything at all past the Electoral Commission because it was effectively a Blairite quango, so, you know, stopping people from defending themselves. But now, if your defence policy is, well, if you're opposed to torturing animals, then we don't care anymore. Please just leave the country. It's not exactly a difficult policy proposal, is it? If you're going to vote against that, then I'm not going to respect you much in the social realm anyway. You can sneer at me if you like, but I apply by animal welfare standards, because if you're humane to animals, your brain works better. Just work it out, speak to Dutton, he'll tell you how that process works. But our civilizations are built on compassion, and the least amount of violence possible. It's just that Birmingham is not civilised. So we funny Wacoers.